The ritual's aftermath left a haunting sense of closure, yet the most formidable challenge lay ahead, confronting Mary Sue's father, Richard Conway, a man renowned for his power and influence in the city. Joanne, still reeling from the ritual, revealed his identity with a mixture of fear and reluctance. Armed with the truth, I sought an audience with Conway under the pretext of a business discussion. His office, located in a skyscraper that towered over the city, was as imposing as the man himself. Stepping inside, I felt like I was entering the lair of a formidable adversary. Richard Conway, a man in his late 60s, exuded an air of authority and intimidation. His office, a shrine to his achievements, did little to ease the sense of unease that gripped me. After initial pleasantries, I steered the conversation towards Mary Sue. His reaction was a masterclass in composure, revealing nothing but a superficial surprise. Mary Sue's case was a tragedy indeed, he remarked, his tone neutral, but I failed to see what that has to do with our meeting. When I mentioned Joanne Simon and the true nature of their past, his demeanor shifted perceptibly. His eyes for a moment betrayed a hint of something darker, more turbulent. Joanne Simon was a mistake from my past, he said coldly. Whatever fantasies you've concocted about my involvement in her or her daughter's life are just that, fantasies. His denial was expected, but his dismissive attitude towards his own daughter struck a nerve. I pressed on, revealing my knowledge of the ritual and the entity. Conway's response was immediate and chilling. His facade of composure shattered, replaced by a barely contained rage. "You're treading on dangerous ground," he hissed, "digging into matters that are best left buried." The air in the room grew thick with tension. It was clear that Conway was not just denying his involvement, he was actively threatening me. "I suggest you drop this investigation, Mr. Jack, for your own sake," Conway warned, his voice low and menacing. His threat hung in the air between us, a clear indication that the truth about Mary Sue was a secret he was willing to protect at all costs. I left his office with a renewed sense of purpose. Conway's reaction had confirmed my suspicions. He was a key player in this tragedy, a man whose influence had cast a long shadow over the truth. The ride back to my office was a contemplative one. The cityscape, with its towering buildings and bustling streets, seemed oblivious to the dark undercurrents of its influential citizens. The truth about Mary Sue's death was now more critical than ever. It was not just a matter of solving a case, it was a fight against the powers that sought to bury the truth. My resolve hardened. Despite Conway's threats, I knew I had to continue. Mary Sue's story deserved to be told. Her voice needed to be heard. This was no longer just an investigation. It was a battle against the silence and intimidation that had kept the truth hidden for so long. As I approached my office, the pieces of the puzzle in my mind began to form a clearer picture. A picture of a young girl caught in the crosshairs of forbidden love, cult practices, and the ruthless ambition of a powerful man. The final chapter of Mary Sue's story was yet to be written, and I was determined to be the one to write it. Faced with Richard Conway's blatant threats and the wall of silence he had erected, the path forward seemed fraught with danger. However, the need for the truth to surface, for Mary Sue's story to be told, outweighed the risk. I knew I had to act, to bring the hidden truths into the light, despite the looming shadow of Conway's influence. I started by meticulously documenting everything I had uncovered: the details of the ritual, Joanne's confession, the diary of Mary Sue, and the veiled threats from Conway. The story was not just about a supernatural entity. It was about power, influence, and the lengths people would go to protect their secrets. With the evidence I compiled, I reached out to Ethan Miller, the journalist I had met earlier. If anyone could help break the story, it was him. Ethan, understanding the gravity and sensitivity of the information, agreed to meet in a discreet location. In a dimly lit corner of a quiet cafe, I laid out the entire story for Ethan: the occult practices, the summoning gone wrong, Joanne's confession, and Mary Sue's tragic end as a result of these dark events. His initial skepticism turned to disbelief, then to a burning determination as the pieces of the puzzle fell into place. "This is explosive," Ethan said, his eyes scanning the documents. "Conway has many allies, and this will stir up a storm, but it's a story that needs to be told. Mary Sue deserves that much." We strategized on how best to release the information, ensuring that the truth wouldn't be buried or discredited. Ethan would leverage his connections and platform to bring the story to light, while I prepared for any potential backlash from Conway. The following days were a blur of activity. Ethan worked his contacts, preparing the story for publication, while I continued to gather any additional evidence that could further corroborate our claims. The tension was palpable, as if the city itself was holding its breath, waiting for the impending revelation. Then, the story broke. It hit the city like a tidal wave, the headlines screaming the dark truth about Mary Sue's death, the details of the ritual, the involvement of Joanne Simon, and the connection to Richard Conway were laid bare for all to see. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Public outrage grew as the depths of the deception and cover-up were revealed. Conway, caught in the eye of the storm, denied the allegations, but the evidence was irrefutable. People just chalked up the death of Mary Sue to a murder caused by a satanic cult headed by Conway. As the story unraveled, more witnesses and people connected to the school came forward, corroborating the story and adding further layers to the narrative. The police, under pressure from the public and media, reopened the case, and an investigation into Mary Sue's death and the alleged occult practices at the school was launched. In the midst of this maelstrom, I received a call from Joanne. She was overcome with emotion, grateful that the truth was finally out, but fearful of the consequences that might follow. "You've done it, Jack. You've given Mary Sue a voice after all these years," she said, her voice trembling. The city was now abuzz with the story, and though the battle was not yet over, a significant victory had been achieved. Mary Sue's story, long buried in the shadows, was now in the light, and those responsible were beginning to face the consequences of their actions. Sitting in my office, I reflected on the journey that had led me here. It had started as a simple investigation into a cold case, but it had transformed into a battle for justice and truth. Mary Sue's voice, silenced for so long, was now heard, and her story would be a reminder of the cost of secrets and the power of the truth. In the wake of the storm that the revelations had stirred, the city found itself grappling with the truth that was as painful as it was necessary. The story of Mary Sue, a tale shrouded in darkness and silence for decades, had finally come to light, resonating with a haunting clarity. The fallout was significant. Richard Conway, once a towering figure in the city, found his world crumbling as the investigation delved deeper into the allegations. His empire, built on a foundation of secrets and lies, was now facing the harsh scrutiny of justice. The public, once enamored by his influence, now saw him for what he truly was. As for Joanne Simon, the revelation brought a cathartic release from the burden of guilt she had carried for so long. Though her role in the tragedy could not be undone, her confession and cooperation with the ongoing investigation offered her a chance at redemption. The school, long abandoned and forgotten, became a symbol of the city's lost innocence. Plans were made to demolish the building, to erase the physical embodiment of the tragedy and make way for something new, something hopeful. In the midst of this upheaval, a small, quiet ceremony took place. A memorial for Mary Sue, attended by those who had known her, those who had been touched by her story, and those who wished to pay her respects to a life lost too soon. I stood there among them, feeling the weight of the journey that had brought us all here. Ethan Miller was there too, his article having been the catalyst for this long overdue reckoning. We exchanged nods, a silent acknowledgement of the role we had played in bringing the truth to light. Joanne, her eyes reflecting the sorrow of a mother who had lost her child, spoke at the ceremony. Her words were a poignant mix of apology, remembrance, and hope. She talked about Mary Sue, not just as a victim, but as a bright, vibrant young girl whose life had been unfairly taken. As she spoke, I looked around at the gathered crowd. There was a sense of communal grief, a shared mourning for a tragedy that had taken far too long to be acknowledged. But within that grief, there was also a sense of closure, a sense of justice that had finally been served. The ceremony ended with a release of white doves, a symbolic gesture of peace and the freeing of Mary Sue's spirit. As the doves disappeared into the sky, there was a palpable sense of release, as if Mary Sue's soul was finally at rest. In the days that followed, the city began to heal. The investigation into Conway and the events surrounding Mary Sue's death continued, but there was a sense that the worst was over. The truth was out, and with it came a hope for a better, more honest future. Sitting in my office, I reflected on the case that had consumed my life for so long. The journey had been long and fraught with challenges, but in the end, justice had prevailed. Mary Sue's story, once hidden in the shadows, had brought a powerful man to his knees and had exposed the dangers of unchecked power and secrecy. The case of Mary Sue would stay with me forever, a reminder of the resilience of truth and the importance of fighting for justice. No matter how daunting the battle might seem, in the end, it was not just about solving a case. It was about giving a voice to the voiceless and ensuring that even in the darkest of times, light could find a way through. As the city moved forward, so did I, carrying with me the lessons and memories of a case that had changed not just my life, but the lives of many. Mary Sue's story was a testament to the enduring power of truth, a truth that would echo through the city for years to come. If you've enjoyed this series, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.